On the late evening of August 20, 1989, the Beverly Hills Police Department receives a frantic emergency call from a sobbing young man. "Somebody killed my parents," Lyle Menendez wails into the receiver in a verified recording that still haunts investigators today. Patrol vehicles swarm the luxurious Mediterranean-style mansion located at 722 North Elm Drive. Inside the smoke-filled family den, first responders find wealthy entertainment executive Jose Menendez and his wife Kitty deceased from multiple 12-gauge shotgun blasts. The sheer ferocity of the scene shocks veteran detectives, pointing toward a deeply personal or highly orchestrated termination of life. The surviving sons, Lyle and Eric, meet the officers on the manicured front lawn, projecting the image of devastated children left inconsolable over the permanent loss of their parents. Before the tragic events of that late summer night, the Mendez family projected the quintessential American success story to the outside world. The city of Beverly Hills in the late 1980s represented a fortress of extreme wealth defined by towering palm trees, glowing sodium streetlights, and imposing wrought iron gates. Jose Menendez built his empire from the ground up, arriving in the United States as a Cuban immigrant before executing a relentless climb up the corporate ladder. He secured a position as a successful executive at Live Entertainment, commanding a vast fortune in the volatile video distribution industry. Colleagues recognized Jose for his intense, controlling nature, a trait that brought him massive financial success but alienated those closest to him. His absolute authority extended far beyond the corporate boardroom, infiltrating every single corner of his personal life. Wealth provided the family with a sprawling estate, a fleet of expensive vehicles, and access to the most exclusive social circles in California. Yet, this fortune served as a gilded cage, masking the deep dysfunction operating just beneath the polished surface. The community viewed the Menendez patriarch as a stern but dedicated father, unaware of the psychological toll his rigid expectations inflicted. Financial prosperity created an illusion of total perfection, shielding the family from any outside scrutiny or intervention. Mary Louise Menendez, known to everyone as Kitty, navigated the complexities of this high-pressure environment as a former beauty queen and devoted homemaker. She managed the immense Mediterranean estate, coordinating the complex social calendar required of a top-tier Hollywood executive wife. The mansion at 722 North Elm Drive stood as a physical manifestation of their immense wealth, featuring heavy wooden entry doors, echoing tile floors, and a sweeping central staircase. Visitors entering the expansive foyer immediately faced a cavernous living room designed to impress guests with expensive artwork and vaulted ceilings. Toward the back of the massive ground floor, separated by long corridors and thick walls, sat the family den. This secluded room served as the private epicenter of the household, insulated from the street noise and visually cut off from the front windows. Within this isolated space, Kitty struggled with profound bouts of depression, relying on prescribed medication to cope with her unfulfilled life. Her emotional volatility matched her husband's demand for absolute control, creating an unpredictable and tense atmosphere. She spent countless hours in the den, watching television and retreating from the demanding reality of her fractured family. The walls of the mansion kept these struggles hidden, ensuring the neighbors saw only the manicured exterior of a flawless life. Lyle and Eric Menendez grew up within this opulent but stifling environment, molded from birth to represent their father's legacy. On the surface, the brothers appeared polished, athletic, and destined for greatness, attending prestigious private academies. They competed in local tennis tournaments with fierce determination, wearing tailored whites and executing powerful serves on exclusive country club courts. Jose dictated their academic paths, their athletic training schedules, and their social interactions with a rigid, unyielding grip. Lyle secured admission to Princeton University, projecting the image of a focused, driven heir apparent to the Mendez empire. Eric followed closely behind, dedicating grueling hours to professional tennis ambitions under the constant critical gaze of his father. Society viewed the young men as the ultimate beneficiaries of generational wealth, possessing every conceivable advantage a child could desire. They drove expensive cars, wore designer clothing, and attended high society functions, projecting absolute obedience and gratitude. Friends and acquaintances saw two well-adjusted teenagers, oblivious to the crushing pressure cooker threatening to shatter their minds. The public narrative celebrated their achievements, ignoring the distinct lack of autonomy that defined their entire existence. Behind the heavy wooden doors of the Beverly Hills estate, a different and horrifying reality governed the daily lives of the brothers. The young men endured years of verified, severe psychological conditioning and systematic boundary violations that stripped them of their fundamental human dignity. Jose enforced his will through relentless intimidation, creating an environment where terror and absolute compliance replaced natural parental affection. Eric and Lyle functioned as extensions of their father's ego, subjected to unyielding demands that fractured their developing psyches. The deeply rooted allegations of severe trauma reveal a household built on fundamental betrayals of trust, turning the sons into silent captives within their own home. They navigated a daily minefield of emotional torture, learning to suppress their fear while projecting the required image of perfection. Kitty offered no sanctuary from the torment, her own emotional absence and medicated state leaving the brothers defenseless against the predatory dynamics of the household. The boys lived in a constant state of hypervigilance, their identities submerged under the weight of their father's oppressive rule. This environment of sustained terror laid the tragic groundwork for a desperate reaction, framing the brothers not as spoiled heirs, but as the primary targets of a hidden catastrophic family secret. The mansion offered no escape, trapping them in a cycle of extreme psychological domination that ultimately breached the breaking point. The culture of 1980s Beverly Hills provided a perfect shield for domestic predators operating behind gates of extreme wealth. Local law enforcement agencies and private security firms prioritized protecting property values and shielding high-profile residents from public scandals. Police officers frequently dismissed reports of erratic behavior or domestic disturbances in these affluent zip codes, deferring to the immense legal and financial power of the homeowners. Social workers and child protective services rarely crossed the threshold of mansions on North Elm Drive, blinded by the assumption that abuse only existed in impoverished neighborhoods. This systemic failure created an impenetrable fortress around Jose Menendez, allowing his reign of terror to continue unchecked for decades. Teachers at the prestigious private academies noticed the extreme anxiety radiating from Lyle and Eric, but school administrators chose silence over risking the loss of massive financial endowments from the family. The legal and social systems designed to protect vulnerable individuals contained massive blind spots when confronted with immense corporate wealth. The brothers learned early that crying out for help would only result in harsher punishments behind closed doors, as the community actively chose to look the other way. This rigid societal protocol guaranteed their isolation, forcing the young men to endure their unseen nightmare without a single lifeline to the outside world. The tragedy that followed was born not just from family dysfunction, but from a community that worshipped success while ignoring the human cost. On the evening of August 20, 1989, the constructed facade of the Mendez family shattered in a matter of minutes. The oppressive late summer heat hung heavy over the quiet, affluent neighborhood of North Elm Drive. Early in the evening, Lyle and Eric left the Beverly Hills estate to attend a local movie theater, creating a documented timeline of their movements. They purchased tickets for a screening of Batman, stepping away from the stifling atmosphere of the family home for several hours. Back at the mansion, Jose and Kitty retreated to the secluded family den located at the rear of the sprawling ground floor. They settled onto the leather sofa to watch television, eating ice cream in the insulated quiet of the massive house. At approximately 10 o'clock in the evening, several neighbors stepping out into the humid air reported hearing distinct, loud sounds echoing across the manicured lawns. These neighbors dismissed the sharp noises as firecrackers, a common enough occurrence during the summer months, and retreated back into their homes. No one called the authorities, and the neighborhood settled back into its typical wealthy silence. The localized nature of the disturbance failed to trigger any alarm systems, leaving the true nature of the sounds undiscovered for nearly 2 more hours. At exactly 11:47 in the evening, the heavy metallic click of the front door lock signaled the return of the Menendez brothers. Lyle and Eric stepped into the grand, silent foyer of the mansion, enveloped by the stillness of the expansive ground floor. They walked past the formal living spaces and navigated the long corridor leading toward the isolated family den at the back of the house. Upon entering the room, they encountered a scene of profound devastation that permanently altered the course of their lives. A thick haze of gray smoke hung in the air, carrying the sharp, unmistakable scent of spent shotgun shells. Jose and Kitty lay lifeless on the furniture, having sustained catastrophic, permanent injuries that rendered any medical intervention impossible. Lyle rushed to the nearest telephone, his hands shaking as he dialed the emergency dispatcher to report the horrific discovery. His voice cracked with genuine hysterical panic as he wailed into the receiver, begging for help while Eric collapsed in the background. The emergency operator struggled to calm the frantic young man, capturing a raw, unfiltered audio recording of total psychological collapse. This frantic plea for help initiated a massive law enforcement response, transforming the quiet estate into a chaotic center of intense scrutiny. Patrol vehicles from the Beverly Hills Police Department descended upon North Elm Drive, their flashing lights casting erratic shadows across the imposing iron gates. Uniformed officers established a secure perimeter, taping off the manicured front lawn and restricting access to the sprawling property. First responders cautiously entered the residence, expecting to find evidence of a violent forced home invasion orchestrated by dangerous intruders. Instead, the physical geography of the crime scene presented immediate, baffling contradictions to the veteran investigators evaluating the space. The heavy wooden entry doors showed absolutely no signs of forced entry, and the expensive artwork lining the walls remained undisturbed. Crime scene technicians noted that the perpetrators bypassed highly valuable items, leaving cash, jewelry, and expensive electronics sitting in plain sight. The destruction remained entirely localized to the family den, indicating a targeted and deeply personal event rather than a random robbery. Detectives observed the specific trajectory of the 12-gauge impacts, realizing the individuals responsible moved with deliberate, terrifying purpose within the confined space. The complete absence of shattered windows or rifled safes forced the investigators to discard their initial assumptions about a standard residential burglary. The wealthy, insulated fortress had been breached from the inside out, leaving law enforcement with a complex, high-stakes puzzle and no obvious suspects. Crime scene technicians worked through the early morning hours of August 21st, documenting every inch of the smoke-filled den with meticulous precision. Forensic experts evaluated the exact positioning of the bodies, noting the deliberate close-range application of the 12-gauge impacts. The trajectory analysis indicated a chilling level of determination as the perpetrators reloaded their weapons and moved closer to ensure a permanent end to the victims. Investigators scoured the exterior of the property, searching the manicured hedges and glowing sodium streetlights for any discarded weapons or footprints. They found nothing but the quiet hum of the neighborhood cicadas and the distant traffic on Sunset Boulevard. The timeline presented a significant challenge for the detectives, who needed to reconcile the 10 o'clock disturbance heard by neighbors with the 11:47 discovered by the Suns. Detectives interviewed the surviving brothers on the front lawn, documenting their matching accounts of the Batman movie screening and their subsequent drive back to the estate. The initial assessment categorized the young men as grieving survivors who had narrowly missed crossing paths with a lethal assassination squad. Law enforcement agencies across Los Angeles received urgent bulletins, initiating a sprawling search for phantom suspects based on the theory of an organized corporate hit. The precise, localized nature of the violence left the Beverly Hills Police Department grappling with a sophisticated enigma that defied standard criminal profiling. In the immediate aftermath of the August 20 event, the Beverly Hills Police Department directs their focus toward the volatile entertainment industry. Detectives operate under the strict assumption that organized crime syndicates orchestrated a professional elimination. The complex business structure of live entertainment provides a vast labyrinth of corporate rivals and disgruntled executives for investigators to navigate. Officers secure the corporate headquarters located on Sunset Boulevard, examining filing cabinets and restricted financial ledgers for any sign of illegal dealings. Detectives spend the early autumn of 1989 conducting formal interviews with board members and business associates across Los Angeles County. They scrutinize Jose Menendez's aggressive acquisition strategies, searching for any individual who harbored a sufficient grudge to authorize a targeted home invasion. Law enforcement agencies deploy immense resources tracking down known associates of organized crime families operating within the video distribution network. Investigators follow a specific lead involving a suspected mob affiliate who recently clashed with Jose over distribution rights. This massive deployment of police manpower yields zero tangible connections to the Beverly Hills crime scene. The rigid, bureaucratic protocol of the police department forces detectives to exhaust every single corporate angle before looking inward at the family. This systemic devotion to the mob theory creates a critical blind spot, allowing the true perpetrators to exist in front of the authorities. The immense wealth and status of the victims act as an invisible shield, convincing veteran detectives that such an orchestrated attack must have originated from outside the exclusive community, while investigators chase phantom corporate assassins through the canyons of Los Angeles. Lyle and Eric Menendez embark on an unprecedented pattern of financial consumption. The young men assume immediate control of the vast estate, operating without the oppressive restrictions that governed their entire previous existence. In the late months of 1989, the brothers abandon the grieving process expected of traumatized survivors and begin liquidating the family assets. Lyle purchases a high-end restaurant in Princeton, New Jersey. Signing complex real estate documents to secure the commercial property, he acquires an expensive Rolex watch and specialized clothing, presenting the image of a wealthy, independent entrepreneur. Eric hires a full-time private tennis coach and invests massive sums of capital into a professional athletic tour across different continents. He drives a brand-new Porsche Carrera off a luxury dealership lot, adding to the growing fleet of high-performance vehicles parked at the Beverly Hills mansion. Forensic accountants later determined the brothers depleted the family estate by an estimated $700,000 in less than 6 months. Detectives monitoring the surviving family members note the profound absence of typical psychological trauma usually associated with witnessing the aftermath of a catastrophic attack. The uninhibited access to generational wealth stands in stark contrast to the severe, highly restricted allowances imposed by their late father. Law enforcement begins to document these extravagant purchases, building a meticulous paper trail of receipts and bank transfers. The sheer magnitude of their spending habits forces the Beverly Hills Police Department to reevaluate the initial profile of the grieving, victimized sons. The transition from the autumn of 1989 into the winter of 1990 marks a crucial pivot in the homicide investigation. Detectives begin reviewing the primary case files from the night of August 20, searching for early procedural errors. A critical systemic failure becomes apparent when investigators realize the initial responding officers bypassed standard containment protocols. The patrolmen on the scene treated Lyle and Eric exclusively as victims, failing to administer standard gunshot residue tests on their hands and clothing. This rigid adherence to the assumption of a home invasion created a massive evidentiary void that investigators now struggle to fill. Detectives reconstruct the exact timeline of the brothers, scrutinizing the movie theater alibi and the precise driving distance between the cinema and the North Elm Drive mansion. The physical geography of the route proves that a tight, unaccounted window of time existed before the emergency dispatcher received the frantic telephone call. Investigators execute a series of targeted inquiries demanding access to the brothers' academic records and personal associations to build comprehensive psychological profiles. They interview close friends and extended family members, uncovering the profound, unseen tension that dictated the daily operations of Menendez's household. The polished exterior of the wealthy dynasty begins to fracture under the weight of this renewed, intense police scrutiny. Officers map out the financial motives, constructing a compelling circumstantial framework that places the young men at the center of the crime. However, the detectives require tangible, physical evidence to connect the brothers to the 12-gauge implements used inside the family den. The critical breakthrough originates from a meticulous search of federal firearms registration databases spanning the entire state of California. Investigators extend their physical search radius far beyond the city limits of Beverly Hills, targeting sporting goods stores and specialized weapon vendors. Their record checking leads them to a large retail establishment located in the coastal city of San Diego, over 100 miles south of the crime scene. Detectives travel to this specific commercial district, interviewing the store clerks and requesting access to the physical transaction receipts from August 1989. The commercial records reveal the purchase of 2 Mossberg 12-gauge firearms occurring just days prior to the catastrophic event on North Elm Drive. The purchaser utilized a specific driver's license for identification, a document belonging to a former university classmate of Lyle Mendez. Investigators travel to the East Coast to interview this individual, confirming that his identification card went missing from his dormitory room in Princeton. The classmate verifies that Lyle had direct access to his personal living quarters during the time the document vanished. This critical chain of custody provides the Beverly Hills Police Department with an unbreakable physical link between the exact weapons used and the surviving sons. The physical distance between the San Diego store and the Beverly Hills mansion demonstrates a profound level of premeditation and geographical planning. Detectives now possess the necessary physical evidence to dismantle the sophisticated alibi constructed by the brothers. The investigation tightens its net, transitioning from a desperate search for unknown suspects to a focused pursuit of the primary targets. As the police close in, the crushing weight of the hidden reality begins to dismantle Eric Menendez. The extreme psychological toll of the traumatic event and the subsequent cover-up triggers severe panic attacks and unrelenting paranoia. Eric seeks refuge in the professional psychiatric office of Dr. Jerome Oziel, located within a discreet medical building in the city of Beverly Hills. The physical layout of the clinic features a quiet, unassuming waiting room separated from the inner sanctuary by a thick, soundproof door. Inside this insulated space, Eric collapses under the immense pressure of his fractured conscience and begins confessing the dark, guarded truths of his family dynamic. He details the specific mechanics of the August 20 event, tearing down the fabricated narrative of the home invasion point by point. Dr. Oziel recognizes the extreme gravity of these admissions and perceives a direct threat to his own personal safety. The psychiatrist violates standard medical confidentiality protocols by implementing a covert recording system within his private office suite. He places a small, voice-activated cassette recorder inside a specialized cabinet, capturing every single word of the harrowing therapy sessions. The magnetic tape records the raw, unfiltered details of the prolonged domestic trauma and the desperate actions taken to escape the environment of absolute terror. These hidden cassette tapes transform the quiet psychiatric office into the holding ground for the most explosive criminal evidence in the state of California. The recorded admissions document a tragedy born from years of systemic abuse, providing the exact proof law enforcement needs to initiate the final phase of their operations. The fragile seal containing the dark family secret fractures through an unexpected external element. Dr. Jerome Oziel maintains a complex, turbulent personal relationship with a woman named Judalyn Smythe. She frequents his private medical residence and gains direct knowledge of the volatile cassette tapes hidden inside the specialized cabinet. A bitter romantic dispute erupts between the two individuals in the early months of 1990. Seeking retaliation, Smythe navigates the physical distance from the psychiatrist clinic to the sterile lobby of the Beverly Hills Police Department. She approaches the front desk and dismantles the impenetrable fortress of wealth protecting the brothers with a singular confession. Smythe informs veteran detectives about the covert audio recordings detailing the lethal events of August 20. Armed with this profound revelation, law enforcement officers draft comprehensive search warrants for the medical suite. Tactical teams descend upon the quiet clinic, breaching the soundproof doors to confiscate the magnetic cassettes. Crime scene technicians inventory the specialized recording equipment, documenting the exact physical state of the medical office. The physical evidence transitions from a hidden medical vault into the formal custody of the state. Investigators listen to the raw audio, hearing the brothers confirm their direct roles in the termination of their parents. The detectives possess the undeniable proof required to execute high-profile apprehensions. The physical geography of the sting operations centers on the expansive streets surrounding the North Elm Drive estate. Unmarked patrol vehicles establish a tight perimeter, watching the massive wrought iron gates in silence. Detectives coordinate their movements over secured radio channels, waiting for the optimal moment to initiate the takedown. On the afternoon of March 8, 1990, Lyle Menendez steps out of his vehicle near the family mansion. Officers carrying specialized tactical weapons swarm the street. They draw their service weapons. They demand absolute compliance. Lyle surrenders without a struggle. The police transport him to the holding facility, stripping away his tailored suits and replacing them with standard detention garments. Eric learns of this tactical apprehension while competing in a professional tennis tournament in the country of Israel. He abandons his athletic ambitions and boards an international flight back to the United States. On March 11, 1990, Eric lands at the sprawling complex of Los Angeles International Airport. He walks through the crowded terminal and approaches the waiting line of plainclothes detectives. The officers place restraints on his wrists, bringing the desperate evasion to an abrupt end. The legal battleground shifts to the Los Angeles County Courthouse, a massive concrete structure defined by echoing corridors and rigid protocol. The brothers enter the grand courtroom, facing an aggressive prosecution focused on the narrative of immense financial greed. The defense attorneys initiate a stunning reversal of public perception, dropping the facade of the spoiled, callous heirs. Lyle and Eric take the witness stand, breaking years of enforced silence to detail the catastrophic reality of their childhood. They describe a relentless campaign of extreme physical trauma and severe boundary violations orchestrated by the Menendez patriarch. The courtroom listens in stunned silence as the brothers map out the specific spatial dimensions of their torment within the Beverly Hills mansion. They explain how the sprawling estate functioned as an inescapable prison void of any standard parental protection. Kitty stood by as an empty phantom, abandoning her sons to the predatory desires of her husband. The young men testify that the events of August 20 stemmed not from a desire for inheritance, but from a primal instinct for survival. This testimony shatters the rigid societal assumption that immense corporate wealth guarantees a safe, functional home. The brothers project profound vulnerability, transforming the narrative from a calculated criminal enterprise into a desperate, tragic reaction to unseen horrors. The initial legal proceedings expose a profound fracture in the justice system regarding the treatment of prolonged psychological trauma. The first trial commences in 1993 with two separate juries seated to evaluate the distinct actions of each brother. The defense team presents mountains of corroborating evidence documenting the intense control and severe abuse permeating the Mendez household. The prosecution attempts to minimize these harrowing realities, pointing to the expensive cars and luxury watches as proof of malicious intent. The rigid, uncompromising structure of the legal code struggles to accommodate the concept of imperfect self-defense in cases of sustained domestic terror. The jurors deliberate for weeks trapped in narrow, windowless rooms while trying to reconcile the lethal conclusion with the documented history of family dysfunction. The strict constraints of the court instructions prevent the panels from reaching a unified consensus on the required charges. The presiding judge declares a mistrial for both young men, leaving their legal fate suspended in absolute uncertainty. The outcome frustrates an observing public demanding a simple explanation for a complex generational tragedy. The justice system demonstrates its fundamental inability to process cases where the primary targets of trauma strike back against their powerful tormentors. The state initiates a second trial in 1995, altering the trajectory of the entire legal battle. The presiding judge implements a series of devastating rigid protocols that strip the defense of their vital context. The court rules to exclude massive portions of the historical abuse testimony, silencing the voices of the primary victims. This catastrophic legal mandate prevents the new single jury from understanding the inescapable environment of terror that consumed the Beverly Hills mansion. The prosecution capitalizes on this restricted narrative, framing the brothers as cold, calculating individuals motivated by the massive corporate estate. By erasing the history of severe boundary violations, the justice system revictimized the young men on a public stage. The sanitized version of events presents a distorted reality, ignoring the human element in favor of a clean, bureaucratic conviction. On March 20, 1996, the jury returns a verdict condemning both Lyle and Eric for the highest degree of fatal action. The court spares them the ultimate penalty of state execution, instead handing down mandatory sentences of life incarceration without the possibility of parole. The heavy wooden gavel strike seals their fate, punishing the survivors while leaving the legacy of the true predator unexamined. The California Department of Corrections implements a harsh mandate, separating the brothers and sending them to different maximum security facilities across the state. This bureaucratic decision severs their vital bond, forcing the young men to navigate the harsh reality of the prison system in absolute isolation for over 2 decades. The vast geographical distance between the specific concrete facilities acts as a cruel extension of their lifelong punishment. The state relents in the year 2018, transferring Lyle to the same housing unit as Eric, bringing the massive separation to an end. The narrative takes a historic turn in May 2025, when a sympathetic judge reviews the expansive evidence of their childhood trauma. The court issues a monumental resentencing order, altering their mandated time to 50 years to life and creating an official pathway to freedom. Despite this significant legal victory, a parole board evaluates their file in August 2025 and denies their initial bid for release. The justice system maintains its iron grip, rejecting a subsequent petition for a new trial and keeping the men secured behind thick steel doors. The sweeping Mediterranean mansion at 722 North Elm Drive passed through different owners over the decades, its pristine walls hiding the echoes of a fractured dynasty. The case of the Menendez brothers stands as a monumental testament to the unseen horrors of extreme wealth, leaving behind a tragic story of two desperate young men who fought a predator and sacrificed their freedom.